Hello, everyone. We're back again with another episode of Open Plus Sec. Um, I'm still Ali, and I'm still with your boy 24 here, who needs no introduction. In today's session, we're going to be talking about some cybersecurity news relating to open source, and going to be we're going to be diving into some popular open source projects by looking at their GitHub, looking at their documentation and their code to kind of give you a better perspective into how open source works. So we're going to be looking at Mozilla Firefox. We're going to be looking at ZAP, which is a security scanning tool, and one or two other projects. 24. What cyber news do we have today relating to open source? I think you had something in mind to talk about.
Yeah, good good day, everyone. So basically now, the first one I have in mind, which is very interesting, the GitHub Secure Open Source Fund. This was recently mentioned. This is an initiative of different companies, Oxford, Shopify, Microsoft, even GitHub themselves, and others. So aside the GitHub sponsor project or GitHub sponsor initiative, this is a particular fund of 1.2, $1.25 million, which is being put together to focus on open source security or the security aspect of open source specifically. So you understand that open source needs funds, even though it needs funds to be able to maintain and make sure that some of these things are still running and kind of like using the most highest quality of project or technologies to maintain. So that's actually one fund I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's a very good initiative, and it means there are going to be more funds available for open source projects. That's like one of the biggest challenges to open source is people volunteering, and people don't have enough time to dedicate to it. So hopefully, with these funds, we'll be able to get more people dedicate time to better maintenance and better security for open source projects. So something else I wanted to talk about is this very interesting, I would say, very interesting development. So, I mean, we talked about last week, we talked about how one of the risks is that we could have rogue contributions because it's open source, right? But the advantage is that because it's open, we have many people looking at these things, and um, whenever there's anything malicious that's been added to it, chances are it's going to be detected. It's very difficult for for you to actually add malicious code to open source without um, anybody noticing. There's a company called Exolabs. It's a machine learning and AI startup, and they they were targeted in this attack, right? And I think last Tuesday, the co-founder of Exolab was kind of warning everyone that there was an innocent looking code change that was submitted to their repository, and the pull request or the change was titled as clarify MLX requirements for DeepSeek models. So it seems like okay. This is not even a major contribution, right? But then you'd see some weird like numbers that were added to that code contribution, and it seems like okay, numbers. What can numbers do? But those numbers are actually Unicode numbers, and each of these numbers represents a character in the alphabet, right? So the person went and converted some Python code, some malicious Python code, into numbers, the numbers equivalent, and submitted that as the code change. If you're not paying too much attention to that, you would think that oh, maybe it's just like some innocent code changes. But once you convert it back into the code, what it does is that it makes a request to a website called evildojo.com and goes to stage one payload. So it probably downloads some kind of malicious payload and reads it and then decodes it. So this is a very, very interesting attempt to add a backdoor into the code. And another interesting part of it is that the person created an account using the name of a popular security researcher or a popular AI researcher, and that kind of added some kind of legitimacy to the contribution. So, and this is something that targeted multiple projects, not just that single project. So it's just another reminder that we need to be more vigilant when it comes to open source security. And it's just a testament to the fact that we need more security professionals contributing to open source, like bringing a security perspective. Imam, do you want to take the next one? I
Just
think
one
there's one
thing.
more that we
I
want.
think buttress. I need to just add this on the first one that I talked about. Then we just take the last one. In as much as you look at 1.2, $1.5 million, something that might be uh, okay. How would this go round? So the intention of this fund is to reach 125 projects. So which means every project gets automatically gets $10,000 to each project, and this might look like a drop in the ocean, but it's a massive contribution depending on the project. Looking at it, GitHub is taking this initiative. They are kind of like working hand in hand with their partners like Open Source Foundation, Open Source Fund Technology. There are others too who are already registered partners of GitHub, and GitHub being the mother of open source, because if you talk about open source, the next thing you talk about is GitHub. So being like the mother of open source, where most of these projects are. This is where you find most of the projects. So it's kind of like a very, very great initiative for them to take this up and try to now create funds for it. I don't believe this is the last step they're going to take, and something that every other organizations or even government agencies can even take up to say, okay, how are we benefiting from this particular project? You don't necessarily have to say you want to contribute to everything, but funds is very, very important for open source projects. Imagine some of these vulnerabilities that you're talking about or attacks that you're talking about. Some of them might be due to low attention or low number of sometimes initiate incentives to contributors matter. Incentives to contributors matter just to make them feel welcome and make them feel important. Very, very important. Uh, the tracking system or the reward system of GitHub trying to make sure that there are people who get to the stage of being called GitHub stars is very interesting. That's another incentive because you obviously be happy to be recognized for all your contributions and all the importance in you've been doing in the open source field. Funds would, in one way or the other, reduce the amount of attacks, some of these small attacks that would happen in the field. So that's what I want to add. So I'll maybe take the last one now, which is the third one.
Cool. So this is actually not just one. I mean, it's on one article talking about it, but there were so many things that happened that they just. I think it's been reported as multiple things into one. So I'll just give like a quick summary. So in the Weave ML toolkit, there was a directory traversal vulnerability that was discovered, which kind of allowed reading files across the whole file system. So allowing a low privilege authenticated user to escalate their privileges into an admin role by being able to read a file called API-keys.ibd. So because these API keys are part of the file system, and then by doing directory traversal and looking at the entire file system, You're able to access this one file that then gives you admin access by being able to access the API keys, and a command injection vulnerability in the Deep Lake AI oriented database. So basically, attackers are able to inject commands when uploading a dataset row. So again, this goes back to like just lack of proper input sanitization, because whenever there's any kind of input that the application allows, you have to kind of treat it as suspicious. You have to properly sanitize it, make sure that the input is matching your standards of what you're supposed to be able to upload. But there was something missing there that allowed you to inject system commands when uploading that data set, and that way you can, basically run different commands within the system. And then there's this Vana AI library, and it's very interesting actually because it's a prompt injection vulnerability. So prompt injection is just when you use an AI prompt to make a system do what it's not supposed to do. So if you're able to like inject commands into the AI prompt, you can make it to uh, make the application to execute those commands. And yeah, that's quite interesting because they're using an AI functionality to hack into an AI system, which is quite interesting. And yeah, I think that's it for cyber open source news. 24. Is there anything else you want to add before we dive into the open source projects?
So, still on the news, I believe listener now can also still go ahead, make more research on this news, or even make more research on other news. These are very, very important because we are all aware that if you're in the cybersecurity field, you need to be current in what's going on in the field because you benefit from it in terms of increasing your knowledge and learning. Imagine if uh, a popular project that you are using or you're depending on gets hacked or basically gets attacked and you are not aware and you just still keep on depending on it while working on a project that you tend to push very, very soon or are already pushing. So please go and make more research. Google is a friend. I believe most of this about now for we'll add the links to get this information or this news on the description below. So the ML, the VML, the ML attack, the secure open source funds. I think I forgot the first one. But yeah, that's everything. So you can just go into the project right now.
Cool. Thanks for adding that additional bit of insight. So I'm going to be sharing my screen now, and if you can just confirm that you can see my screen.
It's like, huh?
Cool. So I've actually never like properly looked into the Firefox source code, but this it's interesting because I just discovered just now that they don't use GitHub for version control. This is just a mirror and it's read only. So you can look at the code here, but if you want to like actually contribute, you would have to use Mercurial, which is a very different version control system. I mean, Mozilla uses GitHub for many other projects, like their VPN service. Yeah, and they use GitHub for like lots of other stuff, but apparently, they don't use GitHub for version control on for the Firefox browser itself, and they have this like guide talking about the directory structure, like what the different parts of the code is, the actual browser itself, the extensions, the themes, tools, like everything relating to Firefox is explained here in terms of like the in terms of the code. So when you look at open source, especially if you're looking into contributing, they usually have contributing guide like, okay, this is how to contribute, and they have like how to set up your environment to contribute to the project, um, and also like guidelines to follow when submitting a contribution, right? I'm not going to go too deep into this one because yeah, I was expecting it to be on GitHub, um, but it's not on GitHub. So to keep things simple, I'm just going to move on to a different project now. I think I was looking at.
Maybe you can check on this 20. That's the name to 20. It's an alternative to Salesforce.
So yeah, you made a great suggestion about this, looking into this 20 application, which is an open source alternative to Salesforce. So you probably heard about Salesforce, HubSpot, all this huge CRM. There hasn't really been like a proper challenger to Salesforce that has like all or almost all of the capabilities that can go to the same scale as Salesforce, which is why these guys started 20. So it has lots of different features. You can actually go in into their website. You can actually like download it or just go on their website and do a demo just to see how it works and everything. Or you can download it and install your own version. Like deploy your own version to your server, right?
Self-hosting.
And it has like, sorry, exactly, you can self-host it. That's the word I was looking for. So of course you can track customers, you can create different opportunities, you can add notes to different tasks, you can also like navigate using keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that. And yeah, it's quite robust. They're still building it, so it's still not like fully on par with Salesforce yet. But yeah, they're still building it. So this is what any kind of like open source um tool or open source project would look like. It would have like an intro, what you can do with the platform, how you can self-host it or run a version locally on your own personal computer. And yeah, this is what it usually looks like. For this one, they have like a community, so you can look at discussions on their GitHub. You can look at the issues. I'm going to go through those in a little bit. But they also have a Discord where you can just join and see what discussions are happening on the project. And the more you're able to learn from that, the more you'll be able to potentially contribute to the project. So here they have discussions on GitHub. Here people are talking about, okay, making suggestions, like ideas on improvements. And yeah, this could also be like a contribution, right? If you're using this tool and you feel like there's something more that can be done, you can just come here, submit an idea, and this gives you an idea of like how active the community is for this project. So you'll know whether it's worth like investing your time. And here, so GitHub issues are just like when you report, it could be an issue, it could be like a bug, it could be an improvement, it could be uh different things. But just make sure you're looking at the guide for adding issues. They usually have like a guideline for it. So if I click on new issue here, they have different ways. So okay, how you want to add a new feature or behavior, you want to report a bug, you want to request like refactoring. So maybe like there's some parts of the code that it works, but it can be better structured. You can do that. If it doesn't fit into any of these categories, you can just create a blank issue and write your own, or you can report a security vulnerability, which I think is what most of our members or our audience would be interested in. So let's so they have like a policy for reporting security vulnerabilities. I think they don't want you to report it on their GitHub issues. They want you to reach out to the team, um, and then they'll respond. Or if you can also request like security features as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But if you want to like report a bug, they have a template here. So try to make sure you're following the guidelines and you're following whatever templates that they've set out for any like open source project. 24, is there anything you want to add to that?
Looking at 20, it's a CRM tool that will be dealing with a lot of data, and we all know how important it is to secure um, data. So by if by extension or say okay now you're using it on a very limited number of data, yeah, that's fine. You're self-hosted. So what are those things that you're putting into measure? And in their policy, while looking at the policy, the fact that they already mentioned that yeah, they will reach back to you after one business day. Um, very nice. This because some security professionals do not have the patience to say, okay, yeah, I'm reaching out to you and you're not responding to me very fast. So the communication has to be one fast and very detailed. So yeah, that's what I want to add because I actually am interested in this particular tool itself. And, uh, so yeah, that's it.
Oh, thanks for that addition, 24. I think we can look at one more project. So
Before we look at
many of you might have heard of. Okay.
so now I wanted to ask you this question since from a as a developer right now, would you say like when I check
Yeah.
projects, I think it's mostly written in TypeScript. So now you as a developer do not have the experience or do not have the knowledge of using TypeScript. How else can you contribute? Or does that limit you to say okay you can't contribute entirely?
Mm, That's a good question. I mean, of course, like naturally, you would want to contribute to projects that are built on technologies that you're familiar with, because that's where you'll be able to contribute the most. But if you're really passionate about a particular project and you're like, you haven't, you don't have experience in the tech stack that they're using on that project, then there's nothing stopping you from like learning. Say you don't know TypeScript, but you've built software, you've written code in other languages. Um, and you can learn TypeScript. You can learn what are the best practices within TypeScript. You can study the code base and understand like how they structure it, what their architecture is, and stuff like that. So it doesn't really stop you from contributing technically, but it will take additional work on your part to try and learn um the language and the conventions and all that stuff. It just depends on like if you're willing to put in the time.
That's fine. The reason why I even asked was because you know now some projects might be written in maybe a very not so popular language or technology. So these guys might be saying, yeah, I'm not good with this particular language. So should I just move on? Or what else can I do? Some people don't even want to go through the stress of saying, just learn this. I have the knowledge of this one. So can I just learn another?
Yeah.
I not be in depth or something to help you contribute as well. But yeah, that's a very nice answer. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that was a very good question, honestly. So I think most of you will be would be familiar with Free Code Camp. So they have like it's basically a free website where you can learn to code, build projects. They even have like certificates and stuff like that. And yeah, I know lots of people that have learned how to code mostly by using these websites. And I think it was very cool when I found out that it's actually an open source project itself. Right. So you can actually go on here and contribute to free code camp, whether it's like by helping to translate their resources, by answering coding questions on their forum, by giving feedback on the projects built by their students, or by writing code to to their open source code bases. So yeah, again, just the same way you can contribute to any project. You can come here, look at the description. They have a contributing guideline as well. Looks like there are lots of contributions that are happening. So that's a good sign that this is a healthy project that is continuously growing. And another thing, I think you mentioned this earlier, but there's ability to like sponsor different projects. If you feel like you like what they're doing and you want to support, you can easily just like sponsor it by donating a little bit of money to it, to help maintain it. And again, they have like issues as well. There are bugs here being reported and enhancements and stuff like that. Something I didn't discuss earlier was something called pull requests. So if you're trying to actually contribute code to a project, what you would have to do is you can't just like push code to the project and just merge it. You would have to like branch off, like create your own branch or your own fork of the repository and do your own development there. So when you've tested it and you're sure that it's working properly, you can come in here and create a pull request. So what this just does is it opens this, request here, and it shows like okay what the contributions are. Here it just removes one line of code, and it does some automatic checks as well, just to make sure that you're meeting their standards. It could also do some security checks automatically, and then it will show you like okay, you know how many of these workflows is successful, and how many of them still need to be fixed. And yeah, typically one of the project maintainers will come here, write a review, and say, okay, this looks good, approve it, and then you're able to merge it. Sometimes, if they need further clarification or if they have any feedback on your contribution, they'll come here and like add a comment and say and request that you should make some changes before merging it. So this is very important because you want to make sure that in any open source project you don't have any kind of like rogue contributions. It might not even be rogue, it might just be like error, right? It might just be like people making mistakes while making contributions. And that could make things a lot more difficult and defeats the entire purpose. So they will try to make sure that any contributions are properly reviewed for quality but also for security. And yeah, that's it. There's lots of projects out there that you can explore, right? And there's one thing that is guaranteed regardless, you're going to learn one or two things.
Thank you very much. That was a great to get us through the in-depth, be able to identify this is where getting information. one certain thing or the other. And this guy is super dopey. A friend of mine works with them. They are like an authenticator or authentication tool or provider. I call them an alternative to Zero or Two because, well, now it's in two parts. They have the proprietary software which is based on subscription, and they have the open source version. So now, the open source version, they have a community on Discord that are actively, very active, actively working to make sure that this is like top notch. And it's crazy because even on the free open source version, I think it can even manage up to 5,000 users, which is very, very large. So it's super token. Maybe that's another point to mention. Check it out. So your own super token. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Now, the reason why I'm even mentioning this is because they are now if you check most of the projects that we've checked now, you see that they have a security section, that they have a policy. So some of these guys do not even have a proper policy to say, okay, now this is how you should attack, or this is not really attack, but this is how you should approach our security aspect. The policy just makes it easier for no beginner, even if you're not a beginner, it makes it very easy for you to be able to see, okay, now these are written information, step by step guide into what you should expect and how you should approach how you should approach their tool. So that's what I just wanted to add. And I think this is the first time I'm realizing that FreeCodeCamp is an open source as well, which is cool. And yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting point because yeah, it's the communication aspect is like super important. People need to know how to contribute or how to report any security issues that they find. And if that is not properly communicated, then that could lead to awkward situations like people reporting a security flaw within the GitHub issue itself. I think a lot of the time they want you to report it to them directly because that gives them an opportunity to fix it before making it public. Um, because once you make it public, trust me, like before that day runs out or before the next day, people go and create an exploit that you can use one to you know take advantage of that vulnerability. So it's better for them, I guess, if you can just go to the project and report the vulnerability to them directly, and then they can fix it without any of that happening. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of today's session. Yeah, I don't know how my voice sounds right now. It probably sounds off. Apologies for that. I've been having a little bit of cold. I don't think the weather in this part, I don't think my body is built for this kind of weather. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time to like readjust. And yeah, I have had to like turn off my camera a few times because nose buffer overflow. But yeah, 24. Any like final notes before we end the session?
It's just sorry about your health. I mentioned this before. So it's just so deep. Why the reason why I'm doing this is because we just want to make sure we're doing this consistently. Makes it easy for other people venturing into or to venture into the field to follow this step by step. If you notice, this is our second episode. If you notice already, shit, it's more like a full building curriculum. Let's talk about introduction, basic overview of what open source is, and security. If you've not watched it, let's go back to watch this episode. The second one, I think that is more fun. When we talked about some tools, we talked about news. The news aspect will always come every episode. So every week, there will be something new, definitely. So bring it. So make sure to support us by watching to the end, sharing with financial analysts who get your friends. So yeah, that is from my end. And I believe we can take discussions, um, contributions on the comment section. So this is the wrap. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, 24. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching and engaging. You know, we're going to continue doing this, and we're going to continue um, getting better at it as well. And yeah, like just like you said, if you have any contributions or anything, you can drop that in the comment section. You can drop that on social media and all that stuff. But yeah, until our next session, hope you all have a lovely day.